Armin Hale had one rule: stay away from her. It wasn't written anywhere. No commander had ordered it. No law enforced it. But he followed it anyway, because sometimes survival wasn't about fighting enemies. It was about avoiding the ones you couldn't defeat. Beginning. Distance is safer. 3 weeks. That's how long Armin had managed to avoid Lyri, the alien princess who had turned his life upside down. 3 weeks since the battle on Outpost K-17. 3 weeks since he made the decision that still didn't feel real, leaving Earth behind. And 3 weeks since he realized that being close to her was dangerous. Not because she was his enemy, but because she wasn't. The Virexian flagship drifted silently through deep space, its massive structure glowing with faint, organic light. It didn't feel like a ship. It felt alive. Armin leaned against the observation window, staring at the endless stretch of stars. He should have been amazed. Instead, he felt restless. You're avoiding her again. Armin didn't turn around. I'm not avoiding anyone. Commander Zyra stepped beside him, her presence as sharp and composed as ever. You have not spoken to Princess Lyri in 17 standard cycles, she said. That is avoidance. Armin sighed. You're tracking that? It is my duty to observe irregular behavior. He glanced at her. Then observe this. I just don't feel like talking. Zyra studied him. You fought beside her, she said. You chose to leave your world for this cause. Yet now you keep your distance. Armin looked back at the stars. Because I learned something, he said quietly. And what is that? He hesitated. Getting close to people like her comes with consequences. Zyra didn't respond immediately, but when she did, her voice was softer. Or perhaps, she said, you are afraid of those consequences. Armin didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. The weight of silence. Life aboard the Virexian ship was strange. Everything functioned with precision, yet nothing felt mechanical. The walls responded to touch. The air adjusted to mood and presence. Even the lighting seemed to shift depending on emotional states. Armin had spent most of his time training, learning, adapting. Anything to stay busy. Anything to avoid her. Lyri, the alien princess. The girl who had knocked on the wrong door and changed everything. He saw her sometimes. Across hallways. In distant chambers. Surrounded by advisors or guards. She always noticed him. Always. Their eyes would meet for a brief second. And then he'd look away. At first, she tried to approach him. The first time, he pretended not to hear her. The second time, he said he was busy. The third time, she stopped trying. And somehow, that felt worse. Middle, the cracks began to show. It happened during a diplomatic assembly. Armin wasn't supposed to be there. Soldiers like him didn't belong in rooms filled with alien nobility and political tension. But Zyra had insisted. You must understand what you are part of, she said. So he stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed, watching as representatives from different factions argued in a language he was still learning. At the center of it all, Lyri. She stood tall, composed. Every bit the princess she claimed to be. Confident, controlled, untouchable. She is losing them. Armin glanced at Zyra. What? The council, she said. They doubt her. Armin frowned. Why? Because she chooses peace, Zyra replied. And many do not believe peace is possible. As if on cue, one of the council members slammed their hand against a glowing surface, their voice rising. Lyri responded calmly, but Armin could see it. The tension in her shoulders. The slight hesitation in her voice. The cracks. For the first time, he saw something different. Not a princess. Not a leader. Just someone trying not to fall apart. The breaking point. That night, Armin couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the assembly in his mind. The way she stood there, carrying the weight of an entire world on her shoulders. Alone. He shook his head. Not my problem, he muttered. He had made his choice. Stay away. Keep things simple. No complications. Then came the knock. Armin froze. Slowly, he turned toward the door. His heart began to race. Because somehow, he already knew who it was. The knock came again. Softer this time. Almost hesitant. He walked to the door.
Paused.
And then opened it. Lyrie stood there. And for the first time, she didn't look like a princess. She broke down. Her eyes were red. Her breathing uneven. Her usual composure gone. Armin, she said softly. And then, she broke. Tears fell silently down her face as she stepped forward. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. Armin stood there, frozen. This wasn't the confident leader he had been avoiding. This wasn't the untouchable princess. This was someone hurting. Deeply. Hey, he said, his voice softer than he expected. What happened? She shook her head. I tried, she said. I tried to be what they needed. Her voice cracked. But it's not enough. Armin felt something twist inside him. He had spent weeks convincing himself that distance was the right choice. That staying away would make things easier, safer. But standing here now, watching her fall apart, he realized something. Some distances weren't protection. They were just avoidance. The truth between them. He stepped aside. Come in. She hesitated for only a moment before entering. The door closed behind her. And for a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Armin broke the silence. You should have come sooner, he said. Lyrie looked at him. You made it clear you didn't want me to. He winced. Yeah. She wiped her tears, trying to regain composure. I thought I could handle it, she said. That I didn't need anyone. Armin leaned against the wall. Turns out, that's not how it works. She let out a weak laugh. No, it isn't. There was a pause. Then she asked, why did you avoid me? Armin exhaled slowly. Because this, he said, gesturing between them, is complicated. How? You're a princess, he said. You've got responsibilities, enemies, a whole planet depending on you. And you. I'm just a soldier. Lyrie stepped closer. You are more than that. He shook his head. No. I'm someone who knows how these things end. Her expression softened. And how do they end? He hesitated. With loss. The choice to stay. Silence filled the room. Then Lyrie spoke again. I don't want to do this alone. Armin looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as a princess. Not as a symbol. But as someone who had trusted him enough to come here. Like this. You're not alone, he said finally. Something changed in that moment. Not dramatically. Not instantly. But enough. The distance he had built over weeks started to fade. Ending. No more distance. The next day, everything changed. Armin didn't stay at the edges anymore. He stood beside her. In assemblies. In strategy meetings. In moments where the pressure felt unbearable. And slowly, things began to shift. Not just for Lyrie, but for everyone watching. Because a princess standing alone was easy to doubt. But a leader who wasn't afraid to rely on others? That was something different. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. The opposing faction launched an attack. Not just on the ship, but on her. This time, Armin didn't hesitate. He didn't hold back. And when it was over, when the dust settled and the threat was gone, he found her again, standing in the aftermath. Alive. You stayed, she said. He smiled. Yeah. She stepped closer. You're not avoiding me anymore. He shook his head. No. Why? Armin looked at her. And, this time, there was no hesitation. Because some things, he said, are worth the risk. Lyrie smiled. Not as a princess, not as a leader, but as herself. And for the first time since he left Earth, Armin felt like he wasn't just surviving. He was exactly where he needed to be. Because sometimes, the hardest thing isn't facing the unknown. It's letting someone in.